Awesome. I think we can get us started and people will trickle in as they trickle in, but we've got a pretty packed agenda tonight and some pretty incredible people other than Kendall and I to hear from and an incredible film to watch. So we'll just jump right in. We're so excited to have everybody joining us tonight. We've kind of got a lot of celebratory pieces that we're bringing together today. The celebration of our Basic Income Bought Me campaign, which if you don't know, what that is, we'll talk a little bit more about that briefly. We've got the Canadian premiere of a really incredible documentary about the Ontario Basic Income Pilot. We've got some former Basic Income Pilot participants to share their experiences. We've got some politicians and elected officials who are incredible advocates for basic income. We've got researchers, filmmakers, kind of just the whole gamut of people. And we're so excited to just jump into this really amazing evening with all of you. So that was a long ramble, but my name is Chloe. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm one of the co-chairs and co-founders of the Basic Income Canada Youth Network. Just for accessibility purposes, before we get started, everybody should have access to automatically generated captions by Zoom that they can turn on and off, however is useful for you. We also like to do at BICYN, before we get started with public webinars, video descriptions just to explain what our background is looking like for folks who might not be able to see what's going on in the webinar. So just before I kick off, I am a white woman with strawberry blonde short hair, and I'm wearing a red plaid dress and a white shirt underneath with a gold necklace. And I've got some cement walls that aren't very interesting behind me. Tonight's event, as I mentioned, is co-hosted by our group, which is the Basic Income Canada Youth Network, as well as the Hamilton Roundtable for Poverty Reduction. If you're not familiar with us, the Basic Income Canada Youth Network, which we know is a mouthful, so we usually say BICYN, is a grassroots national network of young people under 35 who advocate for a basic income. The Hamilton Roundtable for Poverty Reduction is a roundtable of leaders from the business, nonprofit, government, education, faith, and anti-poverty spaces working to achieve long-term solutions to poverty in Hamilton. You'll hear more from their amazing director, Tom Cooper, later on, but in the meantime, you can learn more about both BICYN and the Hamilton Roundtable on our websites, which we'll link in the chat now. And before we get started for this evening, we do want to acknowledge that although this is a virtual session and we're calling in from across Turtle Island, both Kendall and I, who you'll hear from shortly, are calling in as settlers on unceded, unsurrendered Algonquin Anishinaabe territory, which is colonially known as Ottawa. BICYN's work takes place across Turtle Island on land that is colonially known as Canada. We recognize the importance of and are committed to decolonization in our advocacy and beyond, and are very grateful to be able to gather on this land to learn and share together today, and encourage everyone to take a moment to consider and acknowledge and appreciate the lands that you're on now, the lands that sustain our lives and make it possible to gather and learn and celebrate together today. And with that, I'll hand it over to Kendall.
Awesome. Thank you, Chloe. Hello, everybody. My name is Kendall David. I use she, they pronouns. Very excited to be here with you all. My video description, I'm a white person. I have short, shaggy brown hair, and I'm wearing pink eyeshadow and these dangly orange pom-pom earrings, which I have now dubbed my webinar earrings because that's pretty much the only time I wear them now because they're a pain to wear with a mask on. And I've got a black top on that has white polka dots and some gold jewelry, some gold necklaces. And again, behind me is also pretty much just the gray walls of my apartment. Very, very excited to be here with all of you, and just so feeling very honored and very grateful to get to share this time with you to talk about basic income, to talk about the Ontario pilot, to talk about creative approaches to addressing really complex problems that we are facing in this world. I have the distinct honor of being a teaching assistant in social work classrooms, and I'm just coming straight there from working with undergraduate social work students, and our topic today, we were talking about challenges in learning about capitalism and colonialism and what that means for us as individuals and as social workers. And really actually where the conversation kind of ended up is talking about how we don't fall into hopelessness and despair when things are really hard. And all I could think about the whole time was how grateful I am and how much I was looking forward to being here tonight with all of you to talk about basic income, to celebrate a really alternative and radical approach to poverty, to be creative and dreaming up better possibilities, better futures for all of us, and to address issues that, although some might claim are inevitable, we know that there are better alternatives out there. So I just am so grateful to be here with all of you today, and I'm really, really keen to celebrate and talk about the future of basic income. We don't have time tonight to do a full Q&A with all of our really great speakers. And so if you have questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A box on Zoom, and our team will do our best to respond by text over the course of the event. And you're always welcome to reach out to us. We'll put our email in the chat, I'm sure, at some point too. And we, in the spirit of celebration in the spirit of celebration, we want to have safe, inclusive, and respectful conversations tonight, especially in the chat. And we're here to honor the lived experiences and stories of participants who were brave enough and had the courage to participate in the Ontario Basic Income Pilot. And so because of the nature of the event, we're hoping that folks will contribute in the chat their thoughts and ideas in a respectful way and in a considerate way, in an empathetic way, to ensure that again, the tone of the event is celebratory and that we're being respectful of people's experiences. We know that in the aftermath of the cancellation of the pilot, that a lot of participants spoke out about their experiences, and in doing so were harassed online, experienced hateful comments, and even full media reports critiquing and scrutinizing their stories and their experiences. And so we want to prevent this from happening this evening. And so we really thank you in advance for your respect, your empathy, your consideration in the chat box and in the Q&A tonight. And yeah, that's that. Our plan for this evening, we're going to talk a little bit about what the Basic Income Bought Me campaign was. We're going to hear from incredible guest speakers. We have a really, really great group of folks who are here to chat with us tonight. And we're going to do a prize giveaway. We have a bunch of books about basic income that we're really excited to share with you all. And yeah, Chloe's holding up the 3 books. And then we're going to have the Canadian premiere of A Human Picture, which is an incredible documentary about the pilot. We're going to do more giveaways, hear from former pilot participants themselves, close off with another guest speakers, and then do last giveaway. So there's a lot to get through this evening, and I'll wrap up my introductory comments in a moment here. So just on the note of giveaways, we're really excited. Again, we've got a number of books that we're keen to share with folks who are here tonight. And we've been doing a giveaway on our Instagram page this week. So anybody who follows us on Instagram will know. And we've been asking folks to share with us what their favorite Basic Income Bought Me post was. And so in a little bit, we're going to do a draw for everybody who participated in that giveaway. And we've got 3 books to give away from that. And then even if you haven't participated on Instagram, there are still lots of ways for you to enter and win a book over the course of this evening. And so all you have to do to enter into the draw is tell us in the chat what your favorite Basic Income Bought Me post was. And then we'll enter you in, and we'll be doing giveaways over the course of the evening. As long as you tell us what your favorite is, you'll be entered to win. If you haven't had a chance to see the Basic Income Bought Me posts, Chloe, I think, just put the link to our Instagram page in the chat, so you can click on it, open it in your browser on your computer or on your phone, scroll through, and then let us know which one's your favorite. Okay, I think that's it for me. Chloe, go for it. Back to you.
No, it's back to you. I'm going to share, my screen briefly, and we're going to chat through a little bit more about what we're talking about when we say Basic Income Bought Me, if you don't know that already. So bear with me momentarily as I navigate the fun that is screen sharing on Zoom.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll get started while Chloe is getting this. Oh, There we go. Amazing. Okay, so we're here tonight to celebrate Basic Income Bought Me, which was a social media campaign that the Basic Income Canada Youth Network, our group, launched this summer in partnership with the Hamilton Roundtable for Poverty Reduction and in partnership with researchers who studied the Ontario Basic Income Pilot. And so, drawing from 68 interviews across 2 different research projects, the campaign shared these beautiful, colorful graphics on social media to highlight how pilot participants talked about spending their basic income payments and highlighting just how powerful basic income can be. So the campaign spanned over 9 weeks and shared 41 unique participant quotes across Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And the objectives, what we wanted to accomplish in creating and implementing this campaign were firstly to mobilize research about the Ontario pilot by using social media, by the second, to raise awareness about basic income as a desirable progressive policy option. The third, to amplify the voices and stories of those with firsthand experience of the pilot, which is also what tonight is all about. And fourth, to challenge harmful beliefs about poverty, basic income, and welfare. And so really, ultimately, we know that a lot of, again, the media coverage and the public discourse around the Ontario pilot following the cancellation wasn't super great, and it did really perpetuate a lot of harmful beliefs about poverty. And so we wanted to create something that, again, mobilized the research that had already been conducted to challenge those harmful beliefs and to create content and start to think about and dream about the future of basic income, the potential of basic income, and celebrate what was accomplished through the pilot. If you haven't had a chance yet to see the campaign, you're missing out. Come on, get it together. Again, we'll put a link in the chat to our webpage where you can read more about the behind the scenes process, how we came to design the campaign, and you'll find links to our social media pages where you can actually see the campaign itself. And so for now, though, we're going to share 2 examples of some of our favorite posts so that if you aren't familiar with what the campaign looks like, you can we'll give you a little bit of a taste.
Yeah, and you really just built it up. So now I'm almost nervous to change the slide, but we'll show you some of our most favorites that we shared over the course of the campaign. The first being Basic Income Bought Me nutritious food. So we've got here 2 square graphics, both kind of a mint green color with darker green text. And on the first one, we've got an icon of a fork with some fruits and veggies and maybe some other things on it that says Basic Income Bought Me nutritious food. And this is something that I think a lot of folks know, a lot of researchers who have done research around poverty and food insecurity know that when folks get extra money, often the first thing that they purchase is better, more food. So this quote on the right, we've got, I've been able to spend more on healthy foods and eating more often, so I'm no longer missing a meal. I'm always getting all my meals, getting my nutrition, and being able to afford the right nutritional stuff, not just garbage, but actually buying wholesome meals. And we dedicated an entire week of our campaign to food security, but also this idea of food choice, people being able to not only have enough food to eat, but being able to buy the food that they enjoyed, the food that, met any dietary requirements or dietary restrictions that they had, the food that was their kids' favorite food, even if it was a cereal that was a little bit more expensive. The idea of food came up a lot. And the idea of food is also actually connected in a little bit of a different way to another of our favorite posts throughout the campaign, which is lunch for a friend. So we've got here kind of a light peach, 3 light peach graphics with, on the first one, some dark green text that reads Basic Income Bought Me lunch for a friend, and an orange and pink icon of a plate with a fork and spoon on it. And the quote reads, I was able to take my friends for lunch. Nothing extravagant, still living on a budget, going to a $5.99 all-day breakfast and saying, thank you for being my friend. And thank you up to now for always paying for my lunch. I can buy you lunch. I can say thank you to the friends who have invested in me and my friendship years ago. I could take them out for tea and coffee and say, thank you for doing that. I will never forget that. This is one of my favorite quotes from the campaign. And I think it really speaks to, $5.99. It's not a lot of money. I think by most stretches of the imagination, but I think in this case, it went a lot further than buying breakfast. It went buying kind of this idea of reciprocity and saying thank you to a friend and investing in relationships that are really meaningful to people. That can be hard when you're struggling to survive. So those are just two of, again, the 41 quotes that we shared, and say 41 quotes, and we had hundreds of more that we had to toil over not to include just because we couldn't do everything over the course of 9 weeks. But please do check out the rest of the campaign and take a look. And again, in the chat, let us know your favorite. We will be keeping these posts live, of course. We're really proud of the campaign and love kind of the stories and the reactions that we've had to it. So while the celebration does mark the end of our kind of active campaign, we've got lots of ideas brewing about how to scale and expand the project. So we're excited to continue to share these quotes and maybe some other ones as well in our ongoing projects, especially in education and activism about basic income. So we've come to the fun point where Kendall and I are about to stop talking, and I'm going to unpin Kendall and I'm going to pin a very special guest. Right now it's just me, which I don't like. There we go. Now we've got our very special guest pinned. So just to start off our celebration for the rest of the evening, you've met us, you know a little bit more about Basic Income and Basic Income Bought Me. And to start off our celebration, we're so fortunate to be joined by a guest and very powerful advocate for basic income and human rights, Senator Kim Pate. Senator Pate has helped galvanize support for a guaranteed livable income in the Senate, across the country, and even on TikTok, and recently urged the federal government to support the implementation of a guaranteed livable basic income in Prince Edward Island. Senator Pate, you shared Basic Income Bought Me on social media, which we were so grateful for, as well as with your colleagues throughout the campaign. And just to kick off our evening, we'd love for you to share a few words about why you support a guaranteed livable income in Canada, and what type of impact do you think a campaign like Basic Income Bought Me can have politically?
Well, thank you very much it's very generous of you to allow me to join. And I was going to try and explain my background, but I'd rather get to the point. So I apologize for anybody who is interested in more details. I'll try and figure out how to write that out. I'm coming to you from the traditional territory of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish people, otherwise known to many people on Turtle Island as Vancouver. I'm here for a conference, and one of the things, not surprising, I'm encouraging people to think about is guaranteed livable basic income. And so the part of the reason that I was interested, I thought you did you did a fantastic job. And why was I promoting it? Because it was fantastic information. It made people think. And, particularly in the area where I am, there are many people who have never even thought about these issues. It's so far from their lived experience that, they have such privileged lives and backgrounds, they can't even imagine the situation of not being able to afford nutritious food or be able to take your friend for coffee or any of these things. And so I was sharing it because, and many of my colleagues did say it made them think about things in ways that they hadn't before. So thank you for that. I owe you a huge debt of gratitude for helping me to be able to share that information. Why do I support it? Well, I worked for nearly 40 years. I'm a working class kid, and I have family members who have tried to struggle and survive on social assistance, which is criminally low in every part of this country, which doesn't allow people to take care of themselves, much less anybody else they want to try and take care of. Makes people have to try and negotiate poverty and work full time, often longer than full-time hours, trying to just figure out how to survive in an increasingly inhospitable country, in a rich country like Canada's. And so I also saw for many years that the jails are full of people who have the least, that it is poor people, it is people who are racialized, is people who are challenged in terms of past trauma, and often have, as a result of that, challenges with mental health and the rest. And it's certainly not people who pose the greatest risk to society. I think most of us on this call know that. But again, in the area that I'm working and my colleagues often don't understand that. So the fact that we need to be reminding people that it's that income is one of the fundamental starting points for putting people at risk. We know it from the missing. Why did the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls Inquiry recommend it? Because they recognize that racialized, particularly Indigenous women, First Nations women, are more likely to end up in prison, on the streets, homeless, or dead, disappeared, than they are to get a university or even a high school education. And that is outrageous in this country. And so that's part of why they recommended, so that women, and particularly Indigenous women in their case, had other options. And I think the work that you have done to challenge the harmful stereotypes about poverty, about who is poor, why people are poor, has been so important and so valuable. So I could go on, but I know you don't want me to do that, because you want, and I want to hear from some of the folks who contributed their story. So thank you so very much, all of you, for the incredible work you do, and thank you for the humbling honor and privilege of and responsibility of being included in this event tonight. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Senator Pate. I think we also feel so grateful for your support, not just this evening, but in all of the work that we do. And I know that I sleep a little bit better at night knowing that you're on the Hill and doing the important advocacy work that you're doing. So thank you so much. Yeah, not just for this evening, but.
No, well, thank you. And please just call me Kim. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, and so our next speaker this evening, we're going to be hearing from Dr. Tom McDowell, who is a lecturer at X University, which is formerly Ryerson, and undergoing the renaming process now. And Dr. McDowell is also the lead author of Southern Ontario's Basic Income Experience, a report about the experiences of folks who participated in the pilot in the Hamilton-Brantford area. And he's also a researcher with one of the two projects whose data we drew from for the Basic Income Bought Me campaign. And so we're very fortunate, very excited to have you here. And we would love to hear your reflections on the campaign. And if you could tell us a little bit about what research can contribute to basic income advocacy and why it is important to share findings with both politicians and the public.
Well, thank you so much, Kendall, and thank you so much for inviting me. I would argue that Basic Income Bought Me had a profoundly important impact on helping to shape the public dialogue. It helped to inform the public discussion, the popular discussion surrounding basic income, by highlighting the actual lived experiences of basic income recipients and the ways in which basic income transformed their lives. Bringing an issue like basic income into the mainstream is, as Jürgen de Wisplaer has claimed, fundamentally a struggle of feasibility. In other words, the feasibility of basic income as a policy instrument. So for instance, some of those opposed to basic income, and the Ontario government, when they canceled OBIP, would be included in this category, have dismissed basic income on the grounds that it doesn't work. I think that the policy struggle for basic income feasibility has essentially, or is essentially, being played out on three essential terrains. The first terrain, an ideological terrain, that is shaping the struggle for ideas and popular legitimacy of a given idea. It holds that influence can filter up from the grassroots to policymakers. Secondly, a political terrain, that is coalition building, again, shaping the direction of advocacy. And third, an institutional terrain. This is where we deal with policymakers and politicians, and this involves making the case to policymakers that BI can deliver as an anti-poverty tool. In short, moving from idea to practice is a fundamentally political activity. And Basic Income Bought Me played an important role by demonstrating that basic income had real, actual, tangible benefits for people. And in this way, it contributed to all three of these terrains, I would argue. So while providing quantitative data, like our study largely did, is an important part of the process, so too are the real life stories of basic income recipients and the ways in which basic income improved their lives. And this is what Basic Income Bought Me did really well, I think. It contextualized both the traumas of poverty and the inadequacy of existing policy solutions, while at the same time making a fiercely material case for basic income, demonstrating that it had real world impacts in helping to reshape the public dialogue. So that's what I would say.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And yeah, I think that it is so important. When we talk about basic income, I think for a lot of folks, it can feel really theoretical. It can feel really kind of out there, really abstract. And so it was important to us in this campaign to make it feel as tangible as possible. There are real people's lives who were impacted by the basic income pilot, both in profoundly positive ways. And then, of course, we know, especially related to the premature cancellation, in devastating ways. The impacts that the choices that our policymakers, our elected officials make have enormous impacts on real people's lives day to day. And so thank you for highlighting that. And it was certainly something that we wanted to be really, really foregrounded in the work that we were doing. Okay, we're going to shift gears for a moment to do a giveaway. And so sorry, Chloe, did you want to?
I was getting ready to do it. I thought
that's great. Do you want to?
Yeah. I had an excellent it was not a good transition. I was like, you're talking about tangibility. We could talk about these tangible books that we have to give away. I'm never going to speak again. Okay. For those of us who have been following on Instagram, we've got a couple giveaways that are planned throughout this evening. And so great to see people entering in the chat what their favorite quote was. But we've had a couple people who have been engaging with us on Instagram over the past few days for a giveaway that we've been running over there. So of course, the prizes, as Kendall mentioned earlier, we've got Basic Income for Canadians by Evelyn Forget. We've got The Case for Basic Income, Freedom, Security, Justice by Jamie Swift and Elaine Power. And we have got Radical Trust, which is brand new, by Evelyn Forget and Hannah Ocher, who is one of the incredible directors on our steering committee and who we love very, very dearly. So we've got 6 books, I think, total to give away. And if you didn't get a chance to enter on Instagram, no worries. Again, we've got a couple things coming up, but we're going to draw 3 winners right now. We're going to draw 3 winners right now from our Instagram pool and announce them. So not sharing my screen because it's not the best looking website, but I've got like a random name generator website up, and I'm going to try.
Was there a sound effect, a clapping sound effect that I just heard?
That was my dog shaking, but it did actually work pretty well in terms of timing.
Yeah. It really sounded like it sounded like there was clapping happening. I thought it was a sound effect. Anyways.
Yeah, it was Patty collaborating. Okay, so we've got, I'm reading Instagram handles. So we got Anxiously Crafted, we've got Megan McKay, and we have got, sorry, the system is not working great with me, Rosalind Martin. So those 3 people, if you're here, amazing, congratulations, you've won a book. And if you're not here, no worries, we will reach out to those 3 folks over Instagram and arrange getting you some books. And for those in the chat who are saying that book sounds great, keep entering in the chat so we can hopefully give you one of them. But yeah, thank you so much to everybody who did enter that on Instagram. And next,
maybe we'll say, oh, sorry, I was just going to say, maybe we'll say one more time, just in case anybody missed it at the top, that the additional 3 books that we would like to give away this evening, if you would like to enter into a draw, type into the chat what your favorite Basic Income Bought Me post is, and we'll add you to the list and do the random name selector piece again. And maybe Patty will even time it so we can have some clapping sound effects.
No, she's not usually that well behaved, but we'll see what we can do. Okay, amazing. Thank you so much. Thanks to everyone who entered, and thanks for those who keep on entering. Can't wait to get these awesome books in your hands. So we'll turn it over now to our friend and our colleague, Tom Cooper, who is the director of the Hamilton Roundtable for Poverty Reduction, one of our partners for Basic Income Bought Me, and who's going to kind of lead us through the next part of our evening. So take it away, Tom.
Thanks, Chloe. And thanks, Kendall. And thanks, Hannah, as well, who was deeply involved in making Basic Income Bought Me reality. It was an incredible campaign to shift attitudes. And that's something we've been wanting to do for a long time at the Hamilton Roundtable, because for those who may not be familiar, Hamilton was one of the host communities for the Ontario Basic Income Pilot between 2017 and 2019. And although all three political parties went into that election in 2018, announcing that they would support the continuation of the pilot, the party that won reneged on that decision and canceled the pilot, throwing the lives of more than 4,000 people in Hamilton, in Thunder Bay, and in Lindsay into absolute chaos. It was devastating, and it was an incredibly difficult time. At that time, though, while the pilot was still up and running, Simon Brothers, who is a documentary filmmaker, was in the midst of learning a little bit more about basic income by talking to those participants who were involved. And although we couldn't finish the film at that time, we were able to connect again a couple of years later now and complete what became A Human Picture. And it's really a fantastic look at the Ontario Basic Income pilot and how it impacted people's lives. So Simon's joining me now. Simon's a graduate of Sheridan's 2006 film program, where he's produced 2 nationally broadcast films. And Simon brings his artistic inclinations to all the efforts, as he has produced hundreds of client documentaries and certainly been deeply involved in productions and televised broadcasts on TVO as well as CBC. So Simon, I wanted to get a sense from you, what drew you to the idea of basic income initially? What was the impetus that got you started filming A Human Picture?
I think, it goes back to my 20s, I'd say, and being a waiter at a fine dining restaurant and sort of seeing how power and money really work in Canada, and realizing that the balance was not quite right, and being curious. And when my filmmaking career sort of happened and we were making films, I was drawn to wealth inequality and different things that were happening that were addressing that. And we made a documentary about the co-op model of business, which fascinated us. I should say too, it's not just me. Myself and Luke Mistruzzi sort of co-directed this, and then Mark Preston. The 3 of us basically had an equal hand in the film that we're going to watch tonight. What's great about co-ops, why they're so interesting, is because they sort of are operating sort of right under the surface of the current capitalist system, and the possibilities are absolutely endless. We made that documentary, had an Ontario focus, and through making that, you kind of realized how much work there is around education of co-ops, and there's just not that much engagement to have a significant impact on the economy and the way that business is structured. So I started looking for some other things that were happening that were addressing wealth inequality in Canada, and started learning about the basic income, and then the pilot happened. So we just started exploring it, just started shooting. Luke lives in Hamilton, so he did a lot of the preliminary shooting, and it just kind of developed from there. And then it got canceled. And we're like, we still got to make a film. Actually, we really got to make a film now. The cancellation maybe made it's a shorter documentary. Maybe if the pilot hadn't been canceled, it would be longer. I don't know. Maybe if the pilot happens in PEI, or if we go and explore a pilot happening somewhere in Europe or in America, maybe we'll make something longer in the future.
Great. Was there any one story or anything in the conversations you had with former basic income participants that surprised you?
I guess, unfortunately not, but being engaged in these issues, you kind of know that. And I guess we don't make documentaries for the people that have the same outlook and understanding of the issues we're trying to explore as the audience. I think the problem issue that we have in Canada with filmmaking around social issues is that there's not, in America, there's huge philanthropic support. So you can get money from philanthropic foundations, often family foundations that advocate for these things. In Canada, it's not really, there is that sort of money, but it's much more, it's not as significant. So you often sort of start making friends and gaining the trust of groups that have the same ideology as you and are, fighting the same battle as you through your film. And then you sort of cobble together a budget and make something. And that's how this was made. And that's how all of our social issue based documentaries have been made. But I would say that, like tonight, I think most people on this call probably are, we're kind of preaching to the choir here, right? I think everybody here is, sort of pro basic income, maybe not everybody, but that's sort of generally. And I want to, we want people that have no idea about a basic income or, are very skeptical about how it will be, who's going to pay for it, things like that, just dispel these myths like right here, right now. And I'd say that's what really surprised me. We just heard from Tom McDowell earlier. He's in the documentary. We interviewed Hugh Siegel, who's in the film, and just hearing them outline how possible this really is and actually making a business case for it. I wasn't ready for that. And, I can't wait for those that are skeptical of a basic income to hear that.
That's great. Thanks so much, Simon. And yeah, I guess with that, let's see the film. This is the Canadian premiere of A Human Picture. We did show it in Scotland during the Basic Income Earth Network conference, but it was a pretty small audience. So this is a first time for real. So Kendall, Chloe, if you could play the film, let's take a look.
Yes, making it happen.
Thanks for joining Hamilton's discussion on basic
The pilot
income.
was
Thanks
giving
for your-
thousands of Ontarians money to ensure they have the basic necessities of life. Governments
Artist Jesse Golub was part of the program Days of Basic Income for those in desperate need. What happens now?
Government's move inspired photographer Jesse Golub.
Photographer named Jesse Golub started a project called Humans of Basic Income.
She's trying to put a face to some of the people affected by this cut. She herself is also a basic income recipient.
It was meant to be a 3-year study. Your income had to be below $30,000, and then you would receive a basic income of up to $1,400 a month. I was receiving about $700 a month. What I have personally seen, both in myself and everybody I have met on the pilot, people were using basic income to build their own business or go back to school or get jobs. So they're kind of seeing it as not a handout, but sort of like this opportunity. They made the announcement on July 31st, and all they said is, we are going to compassionately wind down the pilot. The next day, I was sitting with some friends and we were talking, and then I thought, well, we're going to get them to hold cardboard, and we're going to get them to write down what they were using basic income for, and I'll get people to hold these signs and I'll take their pictures. I got on Facebook and I started searching in community groups in Hamilton, being like, I'm looking for anybody on the basic income pilot. I want to take your picture. There were a lot of questions that this pilot was attempting to ask. I want everybody to know what happened here.
Tom Cooper has been working to reduce poverty in Hamilton. He calls the changes by the Ford government devastating.
Here in Hamilton, we've been supporting more than 1,000 pilot participants who are enrolled in the Ontario Basic Income Pilot.
I wasn't always the biggest fan of basic income, but as I began to learn more about basic income and really read about it, I really felt it was going to be a critical social policy discussion. We saw this pilot as really important in terms of changing conversations about poverty reduction.
this basic income idea, this movement, while the pilot may have been canceled and ended, this really is going to keep going. The cancellation was devastating for a lot of people, but it also strengthened our resolve.
We should be thinking about ways to reduce poverty. We should be thinking about ways to invest in people's future. And the basic income pilot was about that. This is an idea that needs to be explored. The knowledge that we've gained in Ontario needs to be used going forward.
Ontario was leading the world with this pilot. The whole world was watching. And when you cancel it, I'm like, I got to do something. I thought, well, what can I do? Well, I mean, I do know a lot of business leaders. I did spend a lifetime networking and going to learning events. So I thought, well, wouldn't it be cool if the world knew that business people actually do support basic income? If you look at what's going on in the economy, look at the technologies that are coming, I see a lot of job disruption coming. It was really concerning to me. I don't think that the economic suffering of half the population, also the coming of automation, taking out jobs, is a left or right issue. That's everyone's issue.
Human rights should never be left up to debate. That's why we have a Canadian charter. That's why the United Nations have put in place, conventions on the right to housing, issues around right to children, ending poverty, the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. They have purposes. We know that poverty kills. We know that poverty costs lives. This has been well researched. It's not surprising that call to justice 4.5 of the National Inquiry into Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women and Girls is specifically that. If we want to deal with violence, then one of the calls to justice has to be to finally implement a guaranteed livable basic income for all.
In this location where I live, this used to be a booming area in the northeastern Hamilton. And now it's a lot of low-income people in terrible living conditions around here. All the stores are boarded up. I fell off a roof on my part-time job November 26, 2006. It took me 2 years on workers' compensation. And then they cut me off, and then I went on social assistance. I had to sell my car, my life insurance, give up my apartment, everything. And then I lived, ever since then, I've been living in rooms and terrible living conditions, and that affected my mental health. Matter of fact, if you live in poverty long enough, your mental health will affect you, because 1 in 4 Canadians have effective mental illness. It meant a lot to me that I was able to tell the world that I just went through mental illness and prostate cancer. And that's why being on basic income really helped me out greatly. And like right now, I barely have enough groceries until a week from now when I get my disability check. When I was on basic income, I bought like vitamin B12, vitamin D, took 1-a-day vitamins, and I felt better. Now I'm back off basic income. I can't afford that kind of stuff. Matter of fact, I can't afford fresh fruits and vegetables, which I need. As you can tell by my teeth, I really need that fresh fruits and vegetables. I spent more money, and each time I spent $1, that meant somebody had to work for it, and it created jobs.
Would a basic income reduce poverty more effectively?
Yes, and that is because all the existing programs that we have had, ODSP,
disability support,
and Ontario Works and all the rest, have really not had a significant impact in reducing the amount of people who live in poverty. So my name is Hugh Siegel. I'm now a senior fellow at the School of Policy Studies at Queen's University. And for about 40 years now, I've been a very strong advocate for a guaranteed basic income as the most rational way and the most efficient way of dealing with poverty in a way that reduces the pathologies of poverty in the lives of the poor and the cost to the rest of us. I grew up in a home that was, I would say, on the cheery edge of poverty. Both my parents died young, which, by the way, is a perfect indicator of what poverty does with respect to health status. Most provinces now in Canada spend about 50% or more of their budget on healthcare. We will not have enough money to sustain that healthcare system unless we begin to do some upstream investing to reduce the stream of people who need the system because they have chronic and other diseases, which are often occasioned by poverty. Because low-income people get sick sooner, go to hospital quicker, stay in hospital longer, live shorter lives. So not addressing that question, I think, is at some level immoral. It's certainly incompetent in terms of a mixed market economy. And the failure to do so is only going to produce way greater costs.
I come to this country, I didn't know what welfare is, I didn't know what social assistance is, because when I come here, I went straight into a work as a nanny, and I worked there for 5 years, and from there I went back to school and did the personal support care worker. So I've been working in the field for, when I took sick, it was about, I already did like 17 years of it when I took sick. So it was like a gut wrench when I took sick, and I have to like go and ask for help. My name is Rhonda Costello. I'm from a small island of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and I came to live in Hamilton 24.5 years ago. I'm a mother of 2 girls and 1 grandson. At the time, I was going through some rough time, and I need to get that little bit of boost because at the time I was living off of $729. The basic income was the perfect fit. It's not a quick fix. It's not the magic fix, but it was decent enough to sustain life with who is living under such condition. Just don't judge the book by the cover. Sit down and have a talk about people's lives. Sit down and know the person's journey.
My name is Tom McDowell, and I am an instructor in the Department of Politics and Public Administration at Ryerson University. I was living in Hamilton in July 2018, around the time of the cancellation. And the simple fact was that unless somebody was to collect the evidence, most of the information or all of the information from the pilot would have been lost. My initial interest in basic income was inspired by the need to better understand policy solutions to some of the problems presently facing the contemporary labor market. For example, unstable jobs, the nature of precarious work, contract work, and rising inequality and poverty. So for instance, in our case, what we were able to do was to conduct a quantitative survey that provided a foundation for a series of qualitative questions that would be asked during the interview process. So we were able to identify what some of the experiences of former participants were.
Things were getting extremely tight, mainly because my guide dog became ill. The medication alone cost me approximately $225 a month, which is basically a quarter of my income, I suppose. I have had this dog since December of 2009. You know, she's so much a part of my life. I don't know what I'm going to do when she's not here. The extra money that I got through the Basic Income Pilot Project, being very pessimistic about the whole thing, I put money aside for her. I was able to use money from the pilot to afford to buy triple mix for my garden so that I can grow more of my own food and be more self-sufficient, self-reliant.
I just got this new job that I'm excited about. Piano teaching is going well. One of my really good friends, she bought a house, and she sort of bought it with this plan of like having a basement apartment that I could live in with her in this house. I moved all my stuff yesterday, so yeah, everything is just boxes everywhere, and I'm fairly certain that if I didn't have friends in this city, I wouldn't be able to live here. Yeah, because like it's just so expensive that you almost like you need to know somebody who's either able to offer you affordable housing or somebody that you trust that you could be roommates with or something like that. We are living in a very unpredictable world. Like, you know, COVID has sort of shown us that. I think we're going to have to build that better world, and I think giving everybody a guaranteed livable income should be a very key ingredient in that recipe for the better world.
Well, with all the hardships I've been through, I know that things can be better and things can be worse. That's what my dad said. That comes from the dirty 30s. Things could be better and things could be worse. And with basic income, we know it can be better.
All right, hello. I feel like we need I need a minute to sit with that. Thank you all so much for watching this film with us. I find myself, you know, even though we talk about basic income, you know, Chloe and I talk about basic income and, you know, all the time. It's, you know, we can't do anything as friends together anymore without talking about it. It's part of my academic life and my community. Anyways, talk about basic income all the time, and still watching the movie, I feel very moved, and it really hits right in the feel. So thank you so much to Simon Brothers and the team for creating the movie, for everyone for the film, for everyone for participating in it, and to everybody here today who got to sit and watch with us. I feel that feels very special.
And I think Tom just wants to add a few words before we go on.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks for watching it. But I wanted to give a shout out to Rhonda and Tim and Tessa and Jesse for their incredible courage in telling their stories, not just in this film, but to all the Basic Income pilot participants who were able to share with so many people. about the impact it had on their lives. And also a huge thank you to McMaster University's Labor Studies Department for helping to bring this film to reality by helping to fund it. So thanks everybody. Thanks Simon and Luke and the entire team at Powerline. And we'll certainly be working to make this film widely available over the next several months. So thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Tom. Okay, and so we just have a few, well, some very exciting things that are still on the agenda for this evening. We're going to do one more quick book draw, and then we're going to hear from people who participated in the pilot. We've got a few former participants with us here today who are going to share about their experiences, which we're so looking forward to, and then we'll wrap up the event with a few words from another speaker, and then we'll be done. So the next draw for folks who have put in the chat so far, who have shared with us what their favorite Basic Income Bought Me post is, we put your name into a random generator again, and Chloe's going to draw for the winner of another copy of The Case for Basic Income from Jamie Swift and Elaine Power. All right, Chloe, you got the names in?
Yes, I'm doing a table drum roll because I don't think Patty's going to cooperate with her shaking this time. And the winner for this giveaway is Lorraine Holt. So thank you so much, Lorraine, for entering and sharing your favorite quote. And we'll be in touch with you about one of these books. And which one, Kendall, do you know offhand which one Lorraine said was their favorite?
I cannot remember off the top of my head.
I cannot remember. Okay. That's totally fine. I think we said we were going to try to share if we could come up with it quick, but I'm seeing there's lots happening in the chat, so I don't know how quickly we're going to find it. But we'll be in touch with you via email, Lorraine, about getting one of these books.
Oh, I found it.
Okay, which one is it?
It was the Basic Income Bought Me Stability to Recover from Cancer, which was also definitely one of our favorites. This participant talked about being able to stay in their home, being able to afford their rent and food, and to not have to make a big move in the middle of their cancer treatment. So yeah, that's a great one, a favorite on our end too. Yeah, there we go. Chloe's pulled it up. Do you want to flip to the quote and we can read it?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, the quote says, "I never thought I'd be chosen for basic income because I knew they weren't taking all that applied. I'll never forget that day. It's like the whole world was lifted off my shoulders. Stress just started to leave my body that day. Just to know that I didn't have to eat peanut butter and jam sandwiches for the month and stuff like that, that I didn't have to move was the biggest one. I could stay where I am and recover from cancer." So yeah, deeply impactful. Thank you for sharing that one, Elaine. And there are lots of other stories too from participants on the pilot in this book. And so hopefully you'll enjoy reading those as well. And so for folks who still would like to enter into the draw, we have one more book that we'll be pulling for towards the end of the evening. And so continue to let us know what your favorite post is, and we'll do another draw before we wrap up tonight.
Amazing.
Okay.
So I'm gonna carry us on, and we're almost exactly on schedule, which rarely happens for us, but kind of one of the parts of the evening that we're really looking forward to, and I think many of you are as well, of course, of central importance to the Basic Income Bought Me campaign, to the documentary we just had the immense privilege of watching, is prioritizing and amplifying the voices of basic income recipients themselves. I think a frustration that many of us have is sort of the willingness for people to talk abstractly around this idea of a basic income, and sometimes forgetting that we have thousands of people, not far away in the case of those of us in Ontario who actually have experience having received a basic income, and a very unique experience at that, because there were 4,000 of them. So, with that in mind, we're so honored and excited to have 3 former participants in the Ontario Basic Income Pilot, one from each pilot site, here tonight to talk about their experiences, including what basic income bought them and the importance of this type of campaign. So we'll introduce each of them one by one, along with a question that we're hoping they can reflect on and share. So Luis, we're going to start with you. So I'll introduce you quickly. This is Luis Segura, originally from El Salvador. Luis migrated to Toronto at the age of 9. Now a hip hop artist and business owner with his wife, Leanna. They operate Fresh Fuel and North Ward Coffee Co. in Kawartha Lakes, Ontario. And having eaten at Fresh Fuel, I can attest to the deliciousness of that food. Luis believes in the gifts of music, poetry, and entrepreneurship immigrants bring to cities such as Kawartha Lakes. Luis, you've spoken publicly about the impact that participating in the Ontario pilot has for you and your business. We're really grateful to have you here to share with us tonight. Can you tell us a little bit more about what Basic Income bought you and what you saw it buy others in your community?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So for us, I mean, I've been reflecting on this. I've been listening to everything, and the film, amazing, incredible. Like it really moved me because it's one of those things that I think we can look at all the data and look at numbers, but at the root of it is, it's real people and people's experiences and lives that are, that are at stake and being affected. For us, what I can narrow it down to, it brought us the hope to dream, the hope to aspire for something. And I think that's something that all of us, every person has a dream. Every child has a dream that they aspire for. And sadly, somewhere along the line, we all lose that hope, or we lose, that ability, or the sadly the privilege to chase a dream. And that's what Basic Income kind of brought up to me as I reflected here, that being an artist or a musician, it's the same thing. Like, how many artists and musicians, the thing that holds them back from starting anything is usually funding. As Simon mentioned, even trying to start a film or trying to create these creative ideas or these things that can actually like have an impact in our society. The main thing that holds us back from presenting those ideas or exploring them is funding. So, an artist is also a small business. So being an entrepreneur, it makes me think like, without the funding, it's like, you got to almost have that pay to play. We always almost have a pay to play structure. Like, in order for one to dream or to aspire or to try to put their dreams and visions into reality, you need to have that ticket. And if you don't have the funding for it, then how can we as a society like even accept that? I feel like it's a human right for someone to dream and try to achieve that and aspire that. Sorry, I went on a tangent, but it's just I think that even with our business at the time, we like any small business, we took loans and we ended up we sold our home, rented a 2-bedroom apartment, had 4 kids, and we're able to pay our employees. We weren't paying ourselves, but we were able to juggle which bills were paid alternating each month. And then Basic Income comes along and you're like, oh, head above water, and you're able to, what we did. Again, one of the things that we're touched on is, it gives people opportunity, allows us to invest into our future. And that's kind of how we looked at it. We just, we figured like, okay, let's invest into our business so that we can try to get out of the debts that we've had to do, in order to start this. And, and when Basic Income was cut, luckily for us, we have a strong family unit. Like, both our parents live near us, so they were able to help us as long as, taking care of the kids and that kind of thing, and just have the family support, which unfortunately not a lot of people do have. So when, I noticed that in the community, like during Basic Income, the amount of, new people that we would see in the business, the amount of new families, like, again, like it's been brought up that one of the first things people do is buy nutritious food, because sadly we live in a society where that is not readily accessible. It's cheaper to eat junk food than things that are good for you. And once the Basic Income was cut, you saw that those people that, we're not seeing them run anymore, and it was because of that. They're not able to have that treat where you can say, let's take the kids out, let's take the family out. And those are the things that make you feel human, and when you don't have those, again, that, just that ability, it really, again, it deals with, mental health. There's a lot of self-doubt and defeat that starts to happen. But going forward with our business, now once that happened, like I said, we were adamant on that we were going to, before Basic Income, we decided to open this business. Basic Income has stopped. We're still going to keep going with our business, and we're fortunate, and that here we are. We've expanded to a standalone unit. We have the Northwood Coffee Co. Added to our business, and all these experiences have only made us more aware to be able to give back to our community, because that's the one thing that I think a lot of people that are negative towards Basic Income is because they've never been perhaps in that position, and they don't relate to it, sadly. And unless you have that, unless you've had to struggle and try to stretch $20 for a couple weeks, or or decide on what you're going to eat, what you're not going to eat, what you're going to pay, what you're not going to pay, sadly you can't put your foot in that shoe. And for us, the experiences that we've had, it just makes us much more aware of being able to contribute back to our community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Luis, for sharing. I think I wholeheartedly agree with you that hearing people's stories and getting to hear about what that really kind of tangible, concrete impact was for individual people, how it shaped individual people's lives, is so important. And we're so grateful to have you here tonight, and for your ongoing advocacy for Basic Income. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you all for having me.
Thanks. Okay, so next up we have Joshua Hewitt. Joshua is 5 years sober, recovering alcoholic, and the founder of Stand Up for Cleanup, a volunteer organization dedicated to cleaning up the environment and promoting a sense of belonging in the community. Basic Income helped him to achieve this, along with the completion of apprenticeship in the trades. Having experienced Basic Income, as well as CERB, so the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, and CRB, the Canada Recovery Benefit, there we go, he's formed a solid understanding of what Basic Income is and what it can do for individuals, and hopes to see it implemented so that others can have the same opportunities to advance in life that he did. So Joshua, your story of receiving Basic Income is a powerful one, and involves pursuing an apprenticeship as a tradesperson and founding a volunteer organization in your city of Thunder Bay. And so can you tell us a little bit about what Basic Income bought you during the pilot, and how it supported your apprenticeship and your organization, Stand Up for Cleanup?
Sure. Well, as you know, being a recovering alcoholic, it's never easy to get over an addiction for anybody in life. And whether it's a substance, an activity, or just the lifestyle that we get ourselves stuck into. For me, at first, Basic Income bought me freedom, bought me the ability to be able to go out and spend my life like any other person, feel like any other person, and look like any other person, wear nice clothes, wear new shoes, have clean socks to wear. And formerly, I came from a position of homelessness also for 10 years. So I had the other side of tasting the experience of what it was really like to live at the bottom end of poverty. And I really had the opportunity to improve my life when I was given Basic Income. And at the time, I was at the initial stages of starting my volunteer organization. And I was experiencing some housing issues. And it was very difficult for me being in the course of recovery and trying to find meaning in the community. And with all the financial barriers presented, I know Louis mentioned it's very difficult when you're trying to start a business or be involved in some capacity in the community with limited amount of resources. And there are many other organizations out there that have the resources, and starting something from fresh is very difficult for sure. But having that Basic Income really bought me a foot in the door and a step up in life. And not just allowed me to invest the money back into the community through the volunteer organization, but also allowed me to buy a new place. I was able to move into my own apartment. I was able to take time off to pursue studies and not have to worry about the barriers of missing work or anything like that. And during the course of the Income Pilot, because of my free time, I was able to focus on finding career suits that were best for me and looking at jobs and where they would take me in my life. And I really explored a lot of opportunities, and what really came to me is working in the trades. And I joined with the local LIUNA 607 at our union hall here, and I did an apprenticeship to be a laborer. And it seems like a simple trade to many people, but it's the laborers and the operators. We build the backbone of the nation, and we build the buildings, the roads, and it's because of basic income that kind of launched that initiative and gave me the hope in my life and the finances to invest towards this direction and this career path. And I spent a lot of time advocating towards other people and in the community, trying to get people to be aware of the impacts of basic income and really on how it can affect everybody. Being a tradesman now, many people probably are familiar. The trades are seasonal work, so half the year layoff, sitting at home and collecting EI. Well, I mean, with a basic income, that wouldn't really be the case, right? I would be sitting at home with a sustainable source of income and not having to worry about jumping through the hoops of means testing and everything else. And we have seen other programs like the CERB and the CRB amidst the COVID-19 crisis that has really helped improve the lives of many people who are struggling. Many people who had lost their jobs, taking care of their family members, and it really kind of amplified the need for basic income in all of our communities, not just for the selected communities for the pilot, but there were so many that are in need of this program, especially during the COVID-19 crisis. We see many local businesses closing, many local businesses struggling and having to borrow money, and just regular families having to go into debt just to support themselves and their activities. And I feel like if the government had kept their promise and followed through with this basic income program, we would have had something suitable to deliver during the state of emergency and not having to be back and forth and trying to figure out what works for who and changing the system around half a dozen times to see if it'll wean out the people who are abusing the program, which it's quite astonishing to think that anybody could have used such a program in a time of crisis. But to get to the point, I mean, basic income really bought me freedom. It bought me the freedom to be myself and to be part of my community and to finally feel like giving back after so many years of taking away and taking support, and being able to give a voice to people who were in the same situation I was in and not able to get out of that situation, stuck in those same cycle of behaviors. And I hope maybe by sharing my story and maybe by sharing the information that I do know and by creating volunteer organizations and initiatives that engages people in a meaningful way, that the conversation of basic income really evolves and becomes a household discussion in which all Canadians value basic income as a stepping stone for a better future for all people. As we know, I'd like to quote Johann Galtung, poverty is a form of structured violence, and Einstein once said, we cannot solve the problems with the same method of thinking we use to create them. So with that note, thank you so much for your time and have a great evening.
Thank you so much, Joshua. What a great the transition right to the quotes at the end. And I'm just struck, I think, by, we know that the pilot obviously didn't run its full course. We know that there were design flaws in the pilot and that it could have been more money. And I think even hearing from you, from education to housing to starting a volunteer organization, and now years further, years after, kind of seeing where that even short-lived experience brought you now in terms of where you're at. It's really incredible to hear. So thank you so much for being here this evening, and thank you so much for sharing. I'm really happy to have you here. I'm going to introduce now having fun with the Zoom spotlight features, but I'm going to introduce now our second to last speaker of the evening, Jody Dean. So Jody is a graduate of Speak Now Hamilton Speakers Bureau and a positive and powerful voice for change for people living in poverty in Hamilton. Despite the challenge of being a sole support mom to 3 children and 2 with special needs, she works tirelessly to empower others. She's currently enrolled as a part-time student in the Social Services Worker Program at Mohawk College and spends her quote unquote spare time helping people navigate what can often be an overwhelming social service maze. Jody lives in East Hamilton with her children and her husband of 2 years. Jody, you've been speaking powerfully and publicly about the impacts of poverty and your experience receiving basic income for several years now. And we'd love for you to share what basic income bought for you and your family and why it's important to hear from former recipients themselves when talking about a basic income.
So when I logged on tonight, I had a full idea of how I was going to speak and what I was going to say. And I watched the video and a rush of emotions came back. So excuse me if I take a few minutes to get part of my story out. First, I want to say that when the pilot came around, my husband was working full time, supporting our family, but still as a full-time management position was not making enough money that we still qualified for the pilot. While on the pilot, he got hurt at work and our income dropped drastically. The pilot helped by a simple phone call, explaining the situation, and increased enough to keep the roof over our heads. Without it, we would have lost our home and my children would have had nowhere to go. So I want to start by explaining that. You ask what basic income bought me. So many things, and a lot of them not actually physical things. The biggest thing that basic income bought me was the ability to say yes. To say yes to my children that for so long I've had to say no to. And for simple things, like things that I have a special needs daughter who I think she was 11 at the time the pilot came, and we basically, she has a disease called osteogenesis imperfecta, so she breaks bones very easily. Weekly, we are at physiotherapy in a children's center in our city. And when she finishes physiotherapy, she walks out to the lobby, and of course there's the big stand where you can buy all the treats. And she'd always ask, can I have a smoothie? And something so simple, something so needed after you've been working out and you've been working hard and overcoming pain was not so simple, because $5 for a smoothie or a few loaves of bread, a bag of milk, I had to say no. And that was really hard. When the pilot came into play, that changed. And I could say yes. I could say, sure, you worked hard, honey. You deserve this. That $5 gave me that ability to feel like a better mom, to say, yes, you can have that. And it was huge. And I know that for a lot of people, that won't seem like a big deal. But for us, it was a huge deal. Another big thing that a basic income bought us was, again, people don't even think about these things, but parking passes. Parking at a local hospital is about $20 a visit. There were days where we'd have a regular visit, we'd pay for our parking pass to get in, we'd come home, something would happen, we'd have an emergency, we're back in the emergency room, and now I'm double paying parking. And there were times I didn't have the money to pay parking, and that was just what it was. So when basic income came into play, the very first thing I started doing was buy a monthly pass. A monthly pass gave us enough, $50 to buy several passes at once, making parking $10 a visit rather than $20 a visit. But I never had that money up front just to put out $50. So I just had to deal with the way it was. And from the point on the very first check, that's what I did. Every check we got, I bought parking passes. So we never had to worry about being able to take care of her. And that was a big thing that was important in my life to feel as a good mom. Basic income gave me a lot of financial help, but on top of that, it reduced my stress. Being poor is exhausting. Trying to figure out how to pay the bills, robbing Peter to pay Paul, keeping everyone happy, and then affording your basic needs. It's draining and it takes so much out of you mentally. Basic income gave me the ability to pay my bills on time, to not be on the phone making payment arrangements, to try and figure out how I'm going to, make it ends meet this month. And that gave me the ability to concentrate on the more important things in my life, like my children, and being a better mom for them. These are the things you can't put monetary value on. Basic income changed our lives for the better, not just financially, mentally, and physically. These are the things that lots of people in the outside world don't see. That's why I believe that our voices are important, the voices of lived experience, like mine and my family's, and the people that you've heard from today. We don't always have the opportunities to be heard, and you never really know someone's story until you take the time to listen. So I want to thank everybody for coming on here tonight and taking the time to listen to a bit of my story and everybody else's.
Thank you so much, Jody. I'm so appreciative of your time tonight and your willingness to share and be so open and honest with all of us here today. It means a lot. Thank you. Okay. I said I wasn't going to get emotional this evening, but of course here we are. Okay, we're almost coming to the close of tonight's celebration. We're so grateful for everybody who's joined us and for all of our speakers so far. Before we wrap up, we have one final guest, a very special guest, and we'll do a giveaway after this next speaker, and then we'll wrap up for the night. And so we're very thrilled to have MP Leah Gazan here with us this evening, the Member of Parliament for Winnipeg Centre and a fierce advocate for a guaranteed livable basic income in the House of Commons, among a number of really important progressive causes. MP Gazan, before we finish off tonight's event, what do you see as the next steps for basic income in Canada, and what is the role of advocates and our campaigns like Basic Income Bought Me in helping us to get there?
Hi, so good to join everybody today from Treaty 1 territory, homeland of the Métis Nation, and just want to start out by congratulating you on a really powerful campaign, social media campaign and video. You know, I think through movements like yours, Basic Income Canada, Basic Income Manitoba, all the different basic income networks throughout the country, people are really beginning to understand what a guaranteed livable basic income actually means for people. I'd like to thank Joshua and Jody and Luis for sharing their stories about what a guaranteed livable basic income meant for them. You know, keeping people poor in this country is a choice. It's a willful political choice, a violent, what I call poverty is a very violent human rights violation, a violation that disrespects our Canadian Charter, a violation that leaves people on the streets, sometimes to perish, as we saw in the summer in Vancouver, with many of the unsheltered community who died as a result of the heat, or even seniors in apartments that died of heat exhaustion because they couldn't even afford an air conditioner to cool their space to stay alive. We need to do better. And, you know I'm not alone in the struggle. My good colleague, Kim Pate, and I am looking forward to working with her, Hugh Siegel, Evelyn Forget, Sheila Regier, Sid Frankel. I mean, like just so many people, Tom, like Chloe, Kent, like all of your network. We need to keep pushing. We need to keep pushing because we know as a result of COVID-19 that we actually have the resources. But what we lack is the political will, but this is how you get political will. You let people know in power that if they want to keep their power, then they need to support a guaranteed livable basic income. I was very happy that the NDP in this last election has now included a guaranteed livable basic income for persons with disabilities, and for seniors with a plan to move towards a guaranteed income for all. But we need to do better. You know, Louise, you spoke about the arts community, and I've said in other sessions, you know, if I didn't have art during the pandemic, I don't know about you, movies, books, music, poetry, I don't think I would have made it through the pandemic. It's an essential service. We need to start looking at things like arts, like unpaid care work, like, you know, individuals that for whatever life circumstances are unable to work 5 days a week and keep up this neoliberal agenda that leaves all sorts of people behind that don't fit into that norm that has left so many people out. So I'll continue pushing. I think we need to keep working together on the inside of that place with people on the outside to push forward a movement. I'm excited to get going. We start sitting on Monday. Kim and I are already planning to go for coffee. We're chit-chatting. We're going to go for a coffee. I have not given up this fight. This is a main focus for me as a member of parliament, and I won't stop until we get it done. Thank you. Now, unfortunately, I do have to go to another meeting, but I want to say thank you so much for inviting me, and take care.
Thank you so much, MP Kazan, for coming. And we know you're busy, and we know everybody's here. Everybody here has families and jobs and organizations they run and lots of things going on. So thank you so much, and for your incredible advocacy. It's kind of hard to follow everything that we've heard tonight, and we're coming right up on time, and we'll end, I think, just on time for us. But before we wrap up our event, we've got one more giveaway for folks here tonight, choosing again from our favorite, from people's favorite basic income bought me quotes that have been shared so far. So I'm popping some other names that people have shared into this random name generator, and let's see what our next winner is. Okay, virtual drum roll, and the next book that we'll be giving away is for Lana Szymanski. So Lana, thank you so much for sharing your favorite basic income bought me quote with us. Congratulations, and again, we will be in touch via email to get one of these off to you. So thank you so much. And with that brings us to the end of our evening. 2 minutes before we had hoped to. Thank you so much to everybody who joined tonight, to all of the speakers. You know, folks really generously shared their time, their experiences, their expertise with us, and with everybody attending tonight. And we hope that you're feeling, you know, maybe a little bit more knowledgeable about basic income, but also really motivated and inspired and excited to keep up the fight against criminally low social assistance rates, as Senator Pate put it, against the choice of poverty, against the things that we know are fixable. So Kendall, do you have any words to wrap us up?
No, thank you all so much for being here and for celebrating with us tonight. I hope you have a great evening, and I'm sure that we will see you all soon. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.